Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. I am your host, Jan Washington. This is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. I would like to extend my gratitude in you listening to this podcast. It means everything to me, and I hope it is clear that this subject matter is so important to me. I care about our people, our future, and making a positive change in this nation. And welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. Today we have a special guest, Deandre from California. He is a prison abolitionist and an inspirational speaker with the organization Initiate Justice. He joined us a few weeks ago, you may remember, and he shared his story, having spent 12 and a half years in prison, and his life now, which includes being an activist with Initiate Justice. And he is back to co-host the show today and discuss some great topics. So welcome to the show, Jay.
Hey, Jen, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Have fun last time. Looking forward to a great conversation today as well. Woke by Accident podcasts.
That's what's up. Okay, so this first one is about Alvin Motley. And so Alvin Motley lost his life at the hands of Gregory Livingston. Gregory Livingston's a 54-year-old security guard and former officer who is white, and he's being held on a $1.8 million bond for shooting 48-year-old Chicago native Alvin Motley over his music being loud in his vehicle. And so this story eerily familiar to the Jordan Davis case and the Aiden Ellis case, which I sent you those ones. What do you think about that?
Yeah, the Alvin Motley case is it's crazy because it's become basically an outline for these people who feel like they're an extension of law enforcement to be able to shoot, people of color and marginalized people. And they're finding excuses for any reason. In my opinion, stand your ground laws, from a defense perspective, I don't have a problem with it. But whenever you go and you initiate a situation and you go and cause a situation and circumstances of events, you can't then, claim that it was self-defense and you were scared. That's just not how the law works.
Right.
So even like within the Trayvon case, I was upset with the way that the district attorney argued that case and actually tried to prosecute George Zimmerman because I felt like he tried to challenge the law during the trial. You can't do that, So the law is the law, but at the same time, in order for it to be self-defense, you need to be in a self-defense posture. You need to be right. If we're working with fruit from a bad tree, then it's not right. So
he was not posing a threat to him. Exactly. He just took it among himself to,
Yeah, I seen the video. So like when he went and confronted him the first time and then they had the, words or whatever exchange, it seemed like it wasn't exacerbated or nothing like that. Then toward the end of the video, it looked like Alvin was, approaching him to kind of apologize or just, kind of get things, squared away.
Oh, wow.
And then dude just basically pulled out and started firing while he was backing up. So that was, it was just crazy. And then you see all the good thing about this case is, you got the video and there was a lot of witnesses.
Oh, totally. And he's being charged. We'll definitely keep an eye on that to make sure.
The bigger picture is, like in the abolitionist world and abolitionist perspective, Greg Livingston, like if he is found guilty and sent to prison, like that's not going to solve the bigger problem, which is the systemic system of racism that allows for this to happen, or that sets up the environment and brings all these circumstances into a place where they can clash and take place.
Oh, he is charged. So it says he is charged with second-degree murder.
Yeah.
So you're saying on a larger scale?
No, I'm saying when you look at it from a larger perspective, like even if he's convicted and goes to prison, then that's not going to solve the problem. You know what I mean? Like it's not even going to bring his family true closure. I mean, what would solve the problem is for us to get rid of the racist systems that's in place that allows for this to happen. The teachings, the separatism, the systems of white supremacy that say I'm better than you and then I could do this. That's what we need to, as a country, be fighting to get rid of.
That's true. I mean, I guess what's a good place to start with that? I mean, I guess conversations and dialogue.
Yeah, so conversation is definitely, because whenever you're able to expose, systems of oppression, whenever you're able to bring to light things that are taking place that a lot of people don't really understand or really think that deep, um, then you're able to kind of put things into perspective for a particular audience who never realized or thought deeper than that. Some people might think like this is not it's not a race thing, it's a Second Amendment thing, or some people may be looking at it like, oh, this is just a mind your own business thing. No, it's deeper than that.
Oh, totally.
It's a system that's been set up to where white men have been able to control Black bodies and be able to inject their. I mean, in what world do you live in where you really just pull up and just, hey, turn down your, like, no, it's not how it works.
And did someone deserve to lose their life because of that?
If somebody's playing their music too loud, and you go to the other side of, the gas station, something if it's bothering you, or if you're a security guard, like, that's really not your job. Like, you just a job just to observe and report, but it's that perception of superiority where you think you have the right to confront someone who, if you didn't have that gun, you probably wouldn't even think about even saying two words to him, so it's just the system that needs to be addressed, so that way we could begin to remove that racist hierarchy that's set in place.
That's true. That's a good point. Definitely need to start having more of these conversations, because as we see more cases like this, that just more racial tension, and so the Karen stories and the stories of the neighbors arguing, it's just racial tensioning bubbling up.
Yes. And, of course, a lot of this has existed for, hundreds of years, thousands of years in this country, even, predates everything. But Donald Trump, he really, him and his campaign, his presidency, really thrived off of that. They supported it. They stoked a lot of racism and did a lot of racist tropes, a lot of loaded language, coded language. A lot of people are beginning to show their face or have already showed their faces, and these are their beliefs. So it's up to us to know what we're dealing with and to take the steps to move forward to address it while working within the system to abolish it. And at the end of the day, like, if a person wants to continue to be racist, let's say, for instance, abolition is a long road. Let's say it happens, bam, which it will. And some people, want to continue to live their lives and be, who they want to be, and try to establish that racist system of oppression. Well, they could do it all they want, but at that point, you'll have guardrails in place. You'll have policy in place that won't allow it. And then so they'll still be on the fringe. They'll still be trying to do whatever they want to, do. But at that point, it won't be government supported. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference. It's and it's going to take some time. It's going to take some change. It's going to take because in order to be a racist, you have to be really ignorant, or you have to be a person who's really educated, that's trying to lead a cult, or who wants the power and fame, and so you perpetuate the racism just so it benefits you personally. So as people become educated and begin to have life experiences where they interact with others, then a lot of those racist systems are going to fall by itself, which is why you have these Republicans who are fighting to have CRT, critical race theory, banned from schooling, because they don't want their young kids to know the truth. They don't want them to interact with. They don't want them to confront. They don't want them to know about the systemic systems that we face, because they know that
bizarre is that? How bizarre is that? You want to just take history out of a book? Like, that's crazy.
Well, it seems bizarre, but the crazy part about it, if you look at all the history that's already missing from the school books, you begin to understand it. And it's crazy because, like, I've always knew, like, stuff didn't add up from when I was a child. And even though, like, I wasn't like the brightest student, I was definitely not the worst in the room. And I actually knew, like, a lot of stuff didn't add up. I knew, like, the Columbus thing didn't add up. I knew certain things didn't add up. But for me, it was really put into perspective when I read Lies My Teacher Told Me. And that book, Lies My Teacher Told Me, it just confronts all of the things that were left out of the history books,
Mm-hmm.
all of the systemic patriarchal racism that that set into place certain things that still exist today, even down to how African Americans are described in literature and books and perceived by certain people. It puts everything into perspective, and it's been challenged, and it's been held in regard as a credible source. So it just goes to show you, and it's that, and it's countless other books. So you actually see why school textbooks are formed the way they're formed, because they're written in a general way with these stupid figures from the middle of nowhere who haven't really done anything to affect the major picture of the American system. But because they want, some small school district in the middle of nowhere to buy the books for their school, they need to get those 1,500 sales in that particular little small school district. So they put these figures in there that don't mean nothing to the grand scheme of things. And that's how they convince and talk to these school districts to be able to buy their books. So it's like now you got the whole national population of students whose districts has bought these textbooks that's being confronted with probably like a 2 or 3 page order, 2 or 3 page section in the textbook about some figure in the middle of nowhere who hasn't done anything, simply because they wanted to get that sale in the middle of nowhere. So, if you look at all the people and historical events that's been left out of the textbooks, you'd be really amazed. And not only that, but when you look at the way America has framed itself, to try to like the natives were barbarians and all this, but the colonizers were just the pilgrims who were nice, and and it's like it's really a fallacy, to say the least.
Totally. Yeah, check that book out. I've heard of that book. I have heard of that.
It's a really good
yeah, definitely several things left out of history. So the fact that they want to pull more things out, I guess it's not surprising,
Yeah, because their base feeds off of ignorance, so they can't you can't just tell people whatever you want when they're educated. You gotta keep them stupid in order to be able to tell them whatever you want. So the Republican base is they're constantly being manipulated, just like the Democratic base, and also the liberal base, and the party without preference base. Like, we're constantly being manipulated for our votes. And the thing about it is the conservative base, they're being especially manipulated because they actually vote. They're a 5-vote person. Like, they go out to vote for everything, whether it's recall, whether it's a preliminary, whether it's a general election, with governor selection, whatever, they're voting, primary, midterms, everything. So because they vote a lot, they're constantly being targeted by these candidates to spin and to be able to get whatever piece of legislation or policy that they want passed at the time. And so when it comes to things like these racist tropes and all that stuff, they do it to speak to their audience. They know that, hey, these voters particularly respond to this. So this is what I'm going to put out there. This is what I'm going to do. And, it's working for them because people aren't doing education. People aren't looking at the sources. People aren't using common sense, and not only that, but they're not thinking critically. And that's the big thing is, the digital age, a lot of people have lost the ability to think critically or to examine something. We tend as a people to take, headlines as fact, when the headlines just get your attention, we tend to take headlines as facts and, like it and move on, versus diving more in depth into whatever the actual conversation is. And a lot of it is just being manipulated. People are manipulating you directly for your vote. So it's politicians benefiting off of the racial tension. So we as a people have to understand that and remove those politicians. If you're going to clash sides against together, we got to get you out the way.
Right. Okay, let's go on to the next story. This one has been covered heavily in a very short time frame, and I wanted to talk about it. So Saisha Mercado and medical kidnapping. You all may have heard about the former American Idol from season 7 finalist Saisha Mercado. She had lost custody of her 2 small children. Her and her partner Tehran Dinner had become a trending topic on social media after revealing that their 18-month-old son was taken from them by Child Protective Services. And then over that particular weekend, their newborn daughter was taken from them in a similar manner. And Mercado described it as being kidnapped from the system. Now, there is an update. The youngest child, the infant daughter, has been returned to them since. And it's, the circumstances surrounding it had to do with, they believe in like a vegan lifestyle and natural. And they took the child to the hospital for having issues with weaning the baby off of breast milk. And then that kind of opened up questions of malnutrition and things like that. And it just got deeper where it felt like it was a concern of the child's well-being, and they ended up taking both of their children away. And then you start hearing about all these other stories that, we're not even going to get into those, but this is like a thing that's going on with Black and Brown families, this medical kidnapping, children being taken away. I wanted to get your take on that, being a parent. And this could happen to anyone. We go, maybe your child has a bruise or something, and you go to the hospital and your child could be taken away for some.
Yeah, so definitely I see several issues here that I take issue with. I mean, one thing is, like, whenever it comes to the safety and well-being of a child, that's a real thing. But in this instant, it doesn't look like or appear that like that's really the cause of all of this hurt and trauma, because that's what at the end of the day, that's what CPS is doing. When they're removing these children who are well taken care of, who are loved by their parents, who are just living a different lifestyle. It doesn't automatically matriculate to child child abuse. So from the pictures and stuff that you can see of the children and the steps that the parents have taken, it appears that they've done everything right. It doesn't seem like they've done anything to have their children taken away from them, because they live a holistic lifestyle, and because they don't they try to do everything naturally and without a modern medicine perspective, doesn't mean that they're actually violating laws or are doing anything to harm their children. So the fact that they took the baby and say, hey, we have a problem with this and we need some help with that, and we would like to do this instead of doing that, that shows you right there that they care about their children and they're not abusing the children. I think it speaks to a bigger narrative of the government believing that they could do whatever they want to Black parents and parents of color, because we see a lot of instances of our brothers and sisters of a lighter melanin mixture that live alternative dietary lifestyles and non-modern medicine, and you rarely ever see them treated in this type of fashion. So I mean, it just goes to show you, and then like the fact that they're snatching the newborn from our arms in such a disrespectful manner on the side of the freeway with the sheriffs there and all that. They wasn't offering any resistance or anything else like that. It could have been done in a whole lot better way. And then when I read the reason, it said because they refused a B12 shot, a life-sustaining treatment of a B12 shot. Since when has a B12 shot ever been considered a life-sustaining treatment? Are you serious?
I know, it just seems so odd.
Yeah, it's racism, and that's what it is. I'm glad that they were able to see it for what it is, but it's crazy when you have to move to a different area simply to be treated as human. And when you move to a different area, it's not like it's going to actually happen, because I mean, this happened in Sarasota, Florida. So we know Florida has a lot of racist history, and they still have a lot of systems in place there. But let's say California, for instance, because that's where I live at. California tends to support parents who have alternative lifestyles and parenting styles and medical choices. But if it does arise to certain threshold, then they tend to step in as well. But it's crazy to think that a person who's living, who's breathing, who pays taxes, who is native to a particular land would have to consider, should I move from my home, from everything I've known, just to be treated equally or be treated differently, be treated as a human? And then when you move to that new place, you still have certain things in place where it doesn't make everything 100% better. It's like it might get better here, but it may be, different there. So, I mean, that's why the broader perspective is really just calling out these types of instances and getting rid of these systems where people feel like they have control over Black bodies who aren't, violating the law or are really being, menaces to anything. So it's sad, it's sad that they put all this trauma on these children and these parents because they're going to live with it for life,
Yeah, totally. It would definitely make me want to move away. But like you said, I mean, you could run into that in the next place. So
yeah, you can run into something else. Because I mean, there are states that really support, the alternative lifestyles and respect them and have legislation that protects the different, holistic approaches. But, it's still politics in those states as well, too. So I'll just be looking at this from a different perspective. Like, so basically they're just going to keep taking all their children because they practice a different way of life, and it's not harmful. It's what they believe in, what they committed themselves to. Vegan lifestyle is the best lifestyle you could live as a human. Really, I've been on it. I've been to that point, but I always tend to backslide back to some meat.
Right.
It's really the most healthy lifestyle, and there's plenty of women. It is. Yeah, there's plenty of women and babies who have trouble breastfeeding. They have trouble, latching. They have trouble switching over to bottle or mixing in bottles, or when the mother's at work, they have trouble, nipple confusion where they won't take any other nipple, or, there's tons of different things going on. My son was just born 4 months ago. They have a whole wing in the hospital out here in California, at least at the hospital that we were privileged enough to be able to have our child at. They have like a whole wing where it's just we're just lactation, they just specialize in helping the baby and mom bond in that way to be able to feed naturally, so it's really a thing. And it's sad to see that these parents were separated from their children behind it, so it's
yeah,
I'm happy that they got their daughter back, but it's time to get that son home too.
Definitely.
They seem like great parents.
Oh, for sure. And people have really stepped up and donated to their legal defense. Yeah. So
yeah.
And my heart goes out to other families that are dealing, with similar things, and they don't have that financial support, because I'm sure that
absolutely. There's a lot, there's a lot of families dealing with things like this. And that's a blessing that they have the platform to be able to ask for help, and people be willing to step in and contribute. Because, you run in certain circles of people who are, not that well off, it's hard for them to contribite. So you bring up a great point.
Right. I mean, social media, they've been using that platform, and this had been going on for a few months until, I don't know, that certain weekend, because that was March when they were taken. But then just like 2 weekends ago, it just got real hot on social media.
Was it March? Was it March when that took place?
Yeah, it was March when the with the other child that's still in custody was taken.
Yeah, but the youngest was like a couple weeks back, I believe.
Okay, maybe that's why, because of when they took the second child, that it was more recent. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. But either way, I mean, we should have been, known and hollering for the first child as well too. I mean, all parents.
Well, and I guess he actually, that footage, probably because let me get video of this one, you know what I mean? And it makes sense now.
Exactly.
It makes sense now because they had already went through it one other time.
Why I was tripping on the video when she was like, you've already taken my other child, and can I just put her in the car? Can I just give her one last kiss? And they were like, no, you gotta let her go, ma'am. Are you getting arrested? Like, come on.
Oh my goodness.
It's just horrible. Like when you look at, that's not your job. You don't have that authority. Let a mom be a mom. If she wants to ride with the baby to the hospital, let her ride with the baby to the hospital. What threat does she pose? Put her in the front seat. Like there's so many different things that could have been done differently, more respectfully. And if they
Yeah.
were, probably a white family with the financial connections, it would never even went down like
Hmm.
that, but because, we have control over people who aren't well to do, this, this type of steps that they choose to take, you know.
Right.
So hopefully there's some accountability and those children get home. And then we have to start looking at what trauma they're going to face and go through from having this happen to them.
Right. And then I think this needs to be talked about more often. I know I was in some clubhouse rooms with some women talking about this, and this has just probably been going on for a long time, and we didn't even, know about it. And
Yeah.
this, I could see this being like a book, a movie, and everything just based on the strength of this story. So,
Yes.
yep, we need to pay attention.
Yeah. Because like in
Definitely.
California, we're having a big well, we've had like a not had it, but I mean there's been like a big awakening in California with the CPS system because CPS workers hadn't always protected the children, and it's
Mm-hmm.
been like it kind of got brought to light with a big case of a young Latino child that was killed in LA by his mom's boyfriend and his mom. He was abused for all these months, and there was so many signs. His body was just like he went through some just terrors, and they never protected him. So those
Mm.
CPS workers were actually brought up on charges, but
Is
they
that the
wound up
one with
being a
the
kid.
Netflix movie?
Yes,
Oh
yes,
my God, I saw that. That was
yeah,
heartbreaking. Horrible. Yeah. But at that point, I mean, their response, yeah.
yeah. So it was crazy that they actually it was Gabriel Fernandez. It was crazy that they actually
Mm,
never found those CPS officials guilty,
they
but
didn't.
there
Okay.
was like a big awakening and reckoning with the CPS system. So yeah,
They're
it's
probably taking a closer look, maybe.
yeah, at a lot of cases and
Hmm.
treatments and stuff. So, but
Wow.
yeah, it's a big thing. We gotta protect the children, but also protect families' rights when the family, aren't real abusers.
We do. I mean, goodness.
Like that's what CPS is for, is to protect children from real abusers. So it's like
Like, who's the advocate for the parents that are doing the right thing?
mhm. And then like none of that, but it's usually pretty clear cut, except for when children are experiencing like emotional and mental abuse. Like the cases are usually like pretty clear cut. Like you see, you know, scars and bruises and children
Hmm.
being made to eat paint and inedible things. That's abuse. You see like a parent coming to the hospital like, hey, we want to wean our child off of breast milk, or our child is not taken to the nipple or whatever, and that's usually not child abuse. Like it's just,
Hmm.
it's pretty. A lot of times it can be straightforward. A lot of times, and I mean, I think there are those cases that fall within the gray area, but I think you have to apply some critical thinking to
Yeah.
navigate those ways.
Right. Yeah, we do. So yeah, that's a really interesting story. I'm glad you were game to talk about that. It was more female based, but I mean, as a parent, you can.
It's not female based. See, well, see, you know, my circles and my colleagues, a lot of us, we believe in intersectional femininity. So,
Mhm.
we try to embrace anything that has to do with Black conscious or just world conscious or any view, anything. We're advocates for uncomfortable learning as well as embracing the complete mind. So the patriarchal male, male dominated conversations only, we don't agree with it.
Okay.
And something like that, if it affects one of us, it affects all of us, and
Oh, totally. I mean, the Black
that's what we take
family,
about. Yeah. So
totally is key.
yeah,
So,
if it affects a Latinx family, if it affects a Black family, if it affects
mhm.
a Indian family or a Punjab family, or any family of marginalized people, then it affects all of us, and we coming. So it's just a matter of waking the social justice warriors and getting them fired up. as well as when it comes to addressing instances of wrongdoings within our communities. But we understand that we address them and we call for change and we try to take steps, but there's, bigger issues at play, government sponsored issues, and but we'll abolish those eventually.
So, our next topic will be about the prison abolition movement. We talked about this lightly last time, but I wanted to get more into this and get your take. Now, there's an explanation on Wikipedia that describes the movement as a network of groups and activists that seek to reduce or eliminate prisons and the prison system and replace them with a system of rehabilitation that do not focus on punishment and government institutionalization. The prison abolitionist movement is distinct from conventional prison reform, which is the attempt to improve conditions inside prisons.
So I am an abolitionist. I state it proudly. And I believe that a lot of people are abolitionists. They just don't realize it. Like, I'll ask you a couple questions, Jen. Do you believe in better schooling,
Yes.
better educations for your children,
Yes.
safer communities,
Yes.
housing for all, especially those who work,
Yes.
healthcare for everyone,
Yes, that would be good.
a system of checks and balances to where when people make mistakes, they're actually transformed and allowed to become better people versus become worse and more entrenched in their traumas and violence?
That sounds like it would be a good plan.
Well, it sounds like you're an abolitionist because that's what abolitionists are fighting for.
Hmm.
So the reason why we believe in prison abolition versus reform is because we understand that whenever you come in to reform something, what you're doing is you're trying to repair something that's not working correctly, something that doesn't have a design flaw. You're attempting to make something return to its prior state. So with the prison industrial complex throughout the United States, there's nothing wrong with it. It's working fine. It's working as it was designed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's to incarcerate people of color at a disproportionate rate to everyone else, to make sure you put them in a system where it's just punitive, where it doesn't make them better. It doesn't allow them to become better because you don't have the opportunity to become better. You don't have the rehabilitative services. You don't have the mechanisms to be able to allow someone to enter a state where they have an opportunity to get better, to learn, to grow, and to become a good neighbor. Instead, what the United States system is, it's a system of punishment where people take out their aggressions and their frustrations and they put someone in there and they make it so there's not many resources. So one person has canteen, the other person doesn't, where it's slave labor, where there's little education and lack of rehabilitation. So what happens is it's a system where people are destined to go in a downward spiral and get worse and become more entrenched in their traumas and their shortcomings. Mm-hmm. So that's not a system that's going to return good neighbors to society. What we want to do is build systems that return good neighbors to society, like some other countries. And we want safer community, which will in turn give us safer communities. It will give us more people who are, working and productive, who have a claim to actually be members of society, who are more enfranchised, who give back instead of taking. And then when harm is done, those systems, like I said, of checks and balances, make people better, give people opportunity to become better. So it's not just like a lawless, just, society. It's removing the racist system that's in place, that's not working anyway, that's costing us so much money, that's not working, and diverting our money, because it's our money we've already paid for with our taxes, diverting our money back to our communities, to build our communities, to build our schools, to build, support services and mental health treatments and addictive services, and also to reform the system. Abolish the system and build a system in its place that supports recovery and rehabilitation versus, penalization, racism. So that's what we're fighting for. That's what prison abolition is all about. Okay. And it's a prison abolitionist perspective, but also it's an abolitionist perspective, period, because we're seeking to abolish all systems of white supremacy throughout our nation and that's what it is. It's a set of systems that their government has put in place and has codified and made into policy that that's all of us are affected by. A lot of people just don't realize it. So we're seeking to abolish all of those. In California, we're making a lot of steps. We've had a lot of policies passed, and it's not over. The fight continues. So we're still working to get the system transformed.
Now, there would be like rehabilitation centers, right?
So yeah, like when we divert monies back to our communities, we're going to have systems of we have systems that addresses issues before they become hurts. So the goal is like majority of people commit crimes because like one of 5 reasons: they don't have housing, they have lack of access to education, lack of access to treatment, lack of access to employment, or lack of access to healthcare. That's usually like the top 5 reasons why people commit crimes, or what we deem as crimes, what we've codified as crimes in our law. So if we address those triggers before they become an issue, the odds of someone committing a crime is very low. And then if someone does, which inevitably there will be in any type of society, there's going to be people who who go against social norms or who make a mistake or whatever. So when that does happen, then there's a system of checks and balances where they enter a system where it's rehabilitative in nature and allows them to become better versus putting them in a place where everyone's traumatized, everyone's scared of everyone's been conditioned by law enforcement to be considered everyone else enemies, and all this violence is going on. People are being forced into slave labor. People aren't being fed properly. People aren't being educated properly. And so the trauma just continues to matriculate into the person getting worse. So yeah, it'd be a systems of rehabilitation and addresses for, every need, all of the human needs.
Okay. And then, so talk about some of the work that you're doing with the organization that you work with in relation to this concept.
Okay. So yeah, so my capacity as an outside organizer for Initiate Justice, I do community organizing. Like later on today, I have a voter registration drive. I'm gonna be doing just like a pop-up somewhere, wherever I choose.
Okay.
Here in the city I live in. One of my colleagues is actually bringing up some supplies for me from LA. So we're gonna link up and I'm gonna do like a pop-up registration somewhere. But also too, I'm able to speak with politicians. We speak with politicians and we basically give them our perspective as people who are impacted by these systems that they tend to vote on. So that way they can have feedback on how they're actually being implemented, how they actually affect people. We give our opinions on which are helpful, which are hurtful, and we give them our lived experiences. So we speak with people during, like, whenever it's like a general time to meet with politicians, like whenever, because our organization is nonpartisan. So whenever it's time for whenever the politicians are doing their regular recesses and anyone from the community can speak with them, we speak with them. Also too, we have, like, when we have our meetings, we have some assembly members and congressmen will come to our meetings and we're able to give them our feedback on how the laws are affecting us at that time as well.
Okay.
And we fight for, we stand in the gap and fight for any person who's marginalized in our nation. If it affects one of us, it affects all of us, and none of that but world issues. We're doing a lot of good work. So we're working to abolish the prison system in the state of California, and also to end mass incarceration, throughout the world. So that's what we're all fighting for. And we take steps, whether it's policy, whether it's advocacy, whether it's training. We train other organizers. We're in there. Our director Tiana has set up a great network of organizers and people who are dedicated to this fight. And we ain't going nowhere. We here. So also too, we just launched the IJ Action, which is our nonprofit. That's a political organization. So with IJ Action, and the capacity of IJ Action, we're able to do unlimited lobbying. We'll be able to advocate through voting. So that's what I'm trying to push is activism through your vote, because your vote can be activated. It's just knowing who you have to vote for, who not to vote for, and everything else like that. So, once IJ Action gets completely up and running, you'll be seeing a lot more from us on that end, because we'll be able then to say, hey, this person supports what we stand for, this person doesn't, but until then, we're just, standing with the, but to get more information on that, you could follow Initiate Justice at INITIATE Justice, spelled just like it sounds. Initiate Justice at Instagram and on all platforms, and also to follow IJ Action on Instagram. And then you can follow me, your boy Jay. My handle is at I am the letter J, the word Deandre, DEANDRE on Instagram. I do my best to post every day about issues like ones we talked about, as well as social issues and issues of policy. So I'll be a good follow. I don't spam you if I'm posting something that's some good information. But yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing that and coming back on. And you are certainly welcome to come back on to talk about other work as we get further along in the year.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome to hear.
Next time when I come back, I want to bring my boy Crash Barboza. You know what I'm saying? Like when we talk, we just kind of like, man, we just we tend to go rounds with each other, and like that's my brother. That's my brother in arms and solidarity. That's my guy. And he's an abolitionist who's white, and he gives those Karens and Kens the business. So
I think he follows me on Clubhouse now.
Oh, does he? Yeah. He's the one that he nominated me for Clubhouse when it was still exclusive. But yeah, that would be like a great thing if we can kind of try to see if I can get out and see if we kind of set something up. But
anything else to share?
Just we here in solidarity. We stand stumped down to the ground. We're gonna continue to fight, and we're out here pushing this abolition. So love y'all in solidarity, Jay.
All right, well, have a good one.
Yes, ma'am. You too. I got a voter registration pop up to
coordinate. Okay, good vibes for that. All right.
Hey, y'all, go vote. If you're in California, vote no on the recall. That's the main thing, because the Republicans are upset with our governor. So vote no on that recall.
There you go. Right on.
Bye-bye, sis.
All right. See ya. Thanks for listening.
At this time, we are going to go ahead and conclude this episode. We do appreciate you listening. We do invite you to follow us on social media. On Instagram, it is Woke by Accident Podcast. On Twitter, it is Woke by. The Gmail is wokebyaccident@gmail.com. And we are available on all of your favorite streaming platforms. Please go out and follow us, share, leave a review, tell a friend. And every time you listen, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you again, and take care.